Yeah, I heard it. Had a conversation with my agent about it. That was going back and forth with whoever it was, but it was a thing at first. But we done moved past it, so we're here to get better.
I am ready to go.
Now, back to Willard and Dibs on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, Deebo, did you hear that your name was coming up every 4 seconds leading up to the NFL draft, and all these other teams wanted you, and the Niners almost traded you, and they admitted it?
No comment on that.
Did you hear that? Yeah, I heard it.
Well, and that had to be weird because all the talk up to the draft was Aiyuk. They're going to trade Aiyuk. And then at the last minute, it was like, you know what? Deebo.
Well, remember the story? And I forget where, maybe you all remember where this came from. Remember the story where it came out where Deebo's like, they promised me that I'm not getting traded.
Right.
And then a couple days later, it was like, no. Deebo might get traded, and Deebo's now more likely to get traded than Aiyuk.
Yeah, last minute.
And I do think that's why he was like, it was a thing for a minute. Because somehow it was communicated to him that he was not getting traded, and then suddenly it was communicated to him that, yes, you might get traded. And when he says it was a thing for a minute, I'm like, yeah, I bet.
I'm pretty sure it was in a Mike Silver piece from the Chronicle.
There.
Yeah, where he just said he was assured that he's not getting traded this offseason.
And then he was assured that that assurance is no longer in place.
Exactly.
And that would be a thing for anybody.
Well, especially when all the talk leading up to the draft was, Aiyuk's unsigned. Maybe they'll trade Aiyuk. Could they get a first-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk? And if you're Deebo, you're probably thinking, yeah, trade him. Trade Aiyuk. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Imagine? But
I'm going to get all the targets.
Well, I mean, all the targets, and they're going to pick up they're not going to cut me. No way. And, God forbid they draft a receiver in the first round. They wouldn't do that.
This thing is built to get under the skin of competitors. Deebo Samuel is an incredibly fiery competitor. And so nobody at that level believes that the people next to them are better than they are. At the same time, I think that they understand the business, and they also understand age. Like, if there's one thing Deebo would understand that I hope is not offensive to him, is two things. You are older than Brandon.
Yeah.
Number one. And number two, dude, you don't skip any tackles. You tackle them.
Yeah.
You're a battering ram, and it makes you get hurt a lot. And if I'm the 49ers, I'm less interested in Deebo Samuel in his 30s than I am in Deebo Samuel in his 20s.
Right, and he's 28 and a half right now.
Super simple.
He'll be 29 in January in the playoffs. And, as far as the longevity of Deebo Samuel, it doesn't feel like it's as great as a 25-year-old Brandon Aiyuk, for sure. And the way Deebo plays, he's not going to be able to change the way he goes about playing football. And I look at his contract and I see this year he's making 28.6 on the cap hit. And that's a huge, huge number for Deebo Samuel on the cap. And if you have two receivers and you drafted another one and you got Juwan Jennings coming back, it feels like at the end of this next year, it's going to be an odd man out situation. And if Brandon Aiyuk gets a new deal and his number this year goes down and his real contract doesn't start till next year, and Juwan's, on a short deal, and Ricky Pearsall's a rookie, it's going to be Deebo on the way out.
Yeah, well, and again, so are you aware the Niners could move on after this year?
At the end of the day, contract was signed. I know what I signed up for, and we just focus on this year.
Yeah, so it's like, yes, not only do I know that, I knew that all along, and so just focused on this year. Do you give Brandon Aiyuk any advice during contract negotiation time?
Much as I can, actually. I know this is a stressful time, and he's done a tremendous job throughout his career here. And when it comes to things like this, it get tough, and some things you kind of take personal, and it's just like overall, it's just a stressful process, to be honest with you.
Yep, but you got to go through it, and then you come out the other side with $1 billion, and so everything. Yeah, I still
for Deebo,
think
it's 41. He got guaranteed $41 million at signing.
Right.
So that 41 is go ahead and take that, cha-ching, Kevin Dana, put that right in the bank, and then whatever you can make outside of that, that becomes like the free money.
Before we go to the phones, a couple things that we want to do. First of all, we promised you the Shanahan sound. We'll play it in a second. But I want to show you this. Twitch and YouTube audience, twitch.tv/957 The Game, youtube.com/957 The Game. Watch us live and look at your prizes. Like, if you think that we're kidding that we've got a Steph Curry signed jersey, and what about that? Huh? Pow! Look at what you're looking at right now. That's Curry's signature on the 0 of the 30.
That is his signature.
On the back of this beautiful
I've been working on forging his checks. That is his signature.
That beautiful Golden State GSW hoop jersey.
Wow.
Right? So there it is. So
the chef.
Yeah, that is on the line all week long. You know the deal. You listen at 7:30 with the roast, 12:30 Steiny and Goof, 4:30 with us for directions on how you can qualify. And every qualifier wins their own prize, a different prize. We'll let you know a little bit later what today's prize is. But more importantly, you're qualified for the Curry jersey. 15 qualifiers, 3 per day, and then on Friday afternoon, we're gonna give it away now. Okay, so there's that.
Nice.
And then there's this from Kyle Shanahan. You need to limit Christian McCaffrey's touches now that you have him technically signed through age 32.
I mean, I don't think it always needs to be that case with all the runs. Like we got guys that can run the ball and stuff. We got to protect Christian from himself. He doesn't like to ever come out, no matter what the situation is. And I do think that's something we could protect him with more. When you are such a threat in the pass game, it's a little bit different, and that's when you get touches from a running back. A lot of times you're the last choice. Just everyone's deep and you throw it to a check down. So like halfbacks can get 6 targets in a game without one play called for them, just because they're on checkdowns a lot. And so how do we feel about those touches? Man, I'm glad he was out there for that checkdown. That means no one's around and he's getting up the field and he's as good of a threat on a checkdown as there can be. But if he's just taking the wear and tear with 20 carries and stuff every game, and he's definitely good enough to do that, and he's proved he can stay healthy, but you'd like to take some of that off of him and give it to other guys also.
Okay, so the takeaway there, 2 stuffs from Kyle Shanahan in the 52 seconds.
And
And, Christian McCaffrey would touch the ball less this year if Kyle has his way.
Okay. It's nice to say that in June 4th, and it's another thing to really mean it when you get into November and December and you need on 3rd and 4 and you want to run it and you need 5 yards, you're going to give him the football.
Yeah, you're going to give him the ball.
And you look at last year and he rushed it 272 times and stuff. And as a team, you rushed it 499 times. And a lot of those were Elijah Mitchell, 75 carries. Jordan Mason had 40. Purdy, 39. Deebo, 37. Sam Darnold, 21 carries, and I would imagine about 12 of those were kneel downs, at least.
Right.
And those go down as carries. And then you had TDP had 6, Juszczyk had 5, Ray 3, George Kittle had a carry.
There you go.
So when you look at the real carries, you look at Mitchell, 75, and McCaffrey, 272. So Mitchell had about a fourth of the carries that McCaffrey had. Can that number go down with, Garendo
is
and
here
Mitchell?
Now. Yep.
I don't know. I still think that when you get into high leverage football, you're going to give McCaffrey all the carries he needs and more.
Nobody said he's not going to touch the ball a lot.
Right. I just don't think that his overall touches go down, which last year was 67 catches, 272 carries. That is 339 total touches. Yeah, he led football.
Maybe you could lop off 50 carries.
Oh, no chance.
40.
No chance.
Sure, that's a couple a game.
I would still bet that he's over 300 total touches on the year.
Maybe, but again, as he's pointing out, the catches largely you can't game plan for that.
Right.
But you can game plan for how many times you turn around and hand him the ball, and I think they would like another ball carrier, whether it's Garendo, whether it's Mason. I think they'd like another ball carrier to step forward and be a little bit more reliable, maybe a little bit more dynamic. Let's go to William in the East Bay here on Willard and Dibs. Hey, William, what's up?
Well, good afternoon, guys. Dig your show.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I generally agree. I believe they're going to come to terms with Aiyuk, but I do have a different perspective, and I think part of that was when they drafted Pearsall. And my feeling is, first off with Deebo, he's coming off not a stellar year, but a good year. He's going to be motivated to play better this year. You got an all-pro tight end. You got an all-pro running back. You've also got a situation, the elephant in the room or the rat on the table, and that's Brock Purdy. This guy is going to get the double bag. We all know that. They saved money getting rid of Armstead. And I think there is a very good possibility that Shanahan is looking at this and just saying, we're going to stand pat. if he holds out, he's going to hold out, or he's going to play. My feeling is he would play even if he didn't get, his contract up. But it's just another perspective. And it came to mind, like I said, when they drafted that kid in the first round.
Well, okay, lot there. William, thank you very much. First off, the idea that Aiyuk will go ahead and play on the fifth-year option. Maybe, but of course, the great Dan Dibley, once upon a time, asked Brandon Aiyuk's personal coach, goes by the name of TJ Hushmanzada, right here on this show on February 21st of this year, would Brandon potentially play on a fifth-year option?
I'm not going to like it. I'm going to be pissed off for a little bit, and then I'm going to get my ass to work and go dominate another year. Now you're going to pay me more than you would have had paid me the year before. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be pissed off, and then I'm going to go bust my you-know-what, run myself into the ground in the offseason, get better, come back and dominate, and now there's no, can you take it? Nah, I'm taking everything that I deserve, and that should be his mentality. It's natural to be upset. It's natural. But once you don't get it, you got to put your head down and get to work, because if you don't play well, it will be, that's why we made that decision. And so, yeah, it should upset you, but you can't let it affect you. It should upset you, but don't let it affect you at all. Get to work and come back and have a better year.
Now, what TJ also said, because you asked him would he show up for camp.
Yeah.
And the answer was hell to the no.
Exactly.
So, and
here we are.
Well, that scares me. Forget this camp. Nobody cares about OTAs, to be honest with you.
Mandatory.
I mean, there's a piece. Watch these fines go away, dude, when Brandon shows up.
Yeah.
So it's not really mandatory. And I don't even I would have been great if they had announced this McCaffrey thing 2 weeks from now. Let him stay home, plan his wedding, and rest. But that's not the way Christian's wired. And so if he thinks this makes him a better player, knock yourself out. But that's further reason to me why I am so confident that this deal is going to get done, because nobody wins if you don't get it done. The idea of the 49, play that out. Yeah, Brandon's upset, but he still has to play. Keep in mind, the Niners do not get cap space relief. He's got to pay the full $14 million, and right. you go play, and you play angry. And then what do you do when the year's over? First of all, what's happening even during the year? Every time Brandon doesn't get targeted when he's open, does he throw a fit on the sideline? Because he's like, what are y'all trying to do? You trying to mess with my money? Is that what you want when you're trying to beat the Rams in the fourth quarter? Nobody wants that. And then he's upset, and then you get to the end of the year, and what if he does ball out? Now it's what happens year to year? It's only going to get more expensive.
Right.
Or something goes wrong, he gets hurt, and now you don't know what to do. Now you don't know what to do, because Deebo, no matter what, will always be 4 years older.
Right.
And always be more physical. And so I just think that the lack of definition, it only is going to lead to everybody being more frustrated with less clarity. Who wants that?
Nobody does, especially when you're in a championship window and you're a team that wants to, do right by their players, and they've always done that for the most part, and you've had your guys who you want to value and you want to keep, and you pay them and you keep them in the fold, and that's what Brandon Aiyuk is. And the Deebo part of it is something that we can all debate as the year goes on, and the fact that McCaffrey is no longer a question mark, I do think helps the offense now as far as what the roles will be. And if you're Christian McCaffrey now, you can go out there and just play football. You've got your guaranteed money for the next couple of years. And then after that, you can figure out what you're going to do contractually going forward. And if you're Aiyuk, you're in that same spot right now. You want this to just be done. You want your guaranteed number to be whatever that guaranteed number is going to be. Then you can just go out there and play football.
Want some more Kyle?
Let's go.
Let's get some more Kyle. First of all, just his initial reaction to the new contract extension for Christian McCaffrey.
Every year he's been in the league, seems like he's been the same guy since he's walked in the building. He's the same guy every day on and off the field, and I'm pumped to have him here for a long time.
Okay, but he's going to go past age 31, which, of course, is death for running backs.
Right.
You worried about that, Kyle?
Well, the running back market is different than everything, so I think that we feel very good with where we're at with that, with Christian especially. I think it's contractually, I think it's 4 more years. But when you look at Christian just as an individual, I'm not going to compare him to anybody else. Christian is one of the more talented people I've ever been in my life. But if I didn't speak about that, I'd say he's almost the biggest overachiever I've been in my life. It's been around in my life in terms of how obsessive he is with every little thing. And just, you guys have heard us talk about him, but that's where he's extremely unique. As you get older with age, you lose a step or something. That's not what makes Christian great. It's how he is the same player down in and down out. And yeah, it's great to have all the talent that he does have. And he takes care of his body as good as anyone. So you don't picture him losing any of that because of a number. But if that stuff does happen, Christian's always going to be a good football player until he decides not to be. And we're not really concerned with that at all with his type of personality.
It's an interesting take because I do think you could, look, nobody knows what's going to happen with anybody's body, ever. Like, it's football, anything could happen. But I do think there is some reasoned thought behind the idea that a 32-year-old Christian McCaffrey would kind of equal a 29-year-old Ezekiel Elliott, for example, because of the way he takes care of himself. Look, does Steph Curry look like the oldest guy on the Warriors?
No, he looks better than he did 5 years ago and better than he did 10 years ago.
Like Clay and Draymond look older than Steph.
Yeah.
And they're younger. And part of that is what they've been through, and part of that is the way that Steph operates. Yeah. And Christian kind of operates the same type of way. So is he going to have that same thing where he just hits a 30-year-old wall as a running back? The Niners are protected if he does, but I think there's a real good chance that he doesn't.
Right, and if you look at just his numbers based on his attempts, his yards per attempt rushing the ball were higher than they've ever been in his career. And he's 27 years old, and he's had a ton of carries. And if you go back to his Stanford numbers, Mark, he was used a ton at Stanford in his 3 years there on the farm. So he should be breaking down more than he is, but the fact that he takes care of his body, and we saw him at camp last year, and he comes in and he works harder than anybody. He comes in great shape, and if he can avoid injury, and hopefully he can, he's going to have another monster year.
By the way, Christian was asked the same thing. How do you feel about being signed now into your 30s when running backs often break down?
Yeah, I've never really listened to all that stuff. I think I've seen a lot of backs have a lot of success into their 30s, so I've never really listened to any of that. I feel good. That's all I know.
Okay. So, and by the way, he's not wrong. There are always exceptions, and especially even at that position. ACL takes a full year to recover. Not if you're Adrian Peterson, it doesn't.
Right, 8 weeks.
Curtis Martin was really good past his 30th birthday, just as an example that pops to mind.
My God.
Frank Gore. And then there are other guys who look done when they're 27.
Yeah.
So, simple rule of thumb, I get it, but like everybody with eyes knows that Christian McCaffrey is special. He's special. And they didn't really take that big of a risk here anyway. They didn't take that big of a risk.
Right.
As soon as he does turn 31, if it's all crash and burn, they can just walk away.
Exactly.
No big deal.
It's just they gave him guaranteed money up top for the first 2 years, and you would look at what McCaffrey's done, and you would think 2 more years of McCaffrey, yeah, I'll sign up for that and give him the peace of mind of knowing that money's going to be guaranteed over the next couple of seasons. And when you get through those next 2 years and then Brock Purdy's contract is going to come on the books, you're going to have hard choices to make all over the roster, and probably McCaffrey won't be one of those hard choices.
By the way, and maybe something that helps people also see what the Niners did today, and the Niners are great at this. This is one of those things. They look like the good guy, right? Oh, they took care of Christian McCaffrey.
Took care of their own.
And they did. Don't get me wrong. Christian is smiling and in attendance today. So they took care of Christian McCaffrey. You know who else they took care of? Themselves.
Right.
Christian's cap number got more than cut in half for this year with this new deal. That means they carry that money over to next year. Guess what his cap number did next year? It was 14.3. You know what it is now? Now it's 9.8.
Yeah.
It significantly went down. The 49ers grabbed about $13 million in cap space out of this deal for this year and next year. And what are they going to do with that money? Well, Brock Purdy.
Put it into Brock.
And hopefully Brandon Aiyuk. So they gave Christian money and also created more for themselves, also known as their other players.
Right.
Win-win.
And David
Total
Lombardi will
win-win.
join us to give us the exact breakdown. And one thing that I would bet he's going to say is that the Niners are unique in that they have an owner who's willing to part with the cash up front. That way you can give Christian McCaffrey that cash now. If you have it in your pocket, if you're an owner that has that money, then you can allocate that and you can push the contract down and you can reduce your cap number, thereby making these other things more possible.
Like it does have, it has a cap number now for 2027, which would be the potential final year. A huge cap number. It's almost $28 million.
Yeah.
But what do we know about 2027? First of all, who gives a rip? But Kyle Shanahan would say, I don't even know if we're going to be alive in 2027. But the second thing we know is the NFL cap number goes up every single year.
Right.
We don't even know what it's going to be. And that number is likely to be certainly, at minimum, not as big of a deal then as it would be right now. And so I enjoy watching the 49ers do this because even though I'm just like a lot of us listening right now, like I do not understand all the ins and outs of how this work, but every time there's a new deal that gets signed, I feel like I learn more.
Right.
And the 49ers, I'm pretty sure, are one of the best at it.
Right. And it's partly because they're able to pay the money now in cash in order to make these future deals more possible. And I'm just looking at the contract details. And if you get to 2027, which feels like a faraway year, it's really not. But if you decide at that point you don't want McCaffrey anymore, your post-June 1st release, which is what they did with Eric Armstead, you remember, that would give you a big-time saving under the cap at that point. The dead cap charge would be about $3 million. So if you have 3 more years of McCaffrey and he's starting to break down and you realize, man, it's time to move on and get a new running back in here, you can make that move then and you won't have to incur what you were talking about, that big cap charge in 2027.
Let's go to Ryan and Irvine next up, Willard and Dibs. Hi, Ryan. What's cooking?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
What's up?
Hey, how's it going? I wanted to preface this with I'm usually wrong on my takes. So
me too.
Here's another probably incorrect take, but I feel like the 49ers, the way they negotiate with their players, I don't fully agree with it. And I say that knowing that they have so much track history with showing how successful they are in signing, their own players. But I feel like last year, the holdout situation with Nick Bosa in the long run was detrimental to their ultimate goal in winning the Super Bowl. And I feel like every year there's this big holdout with one of their homegrown players. It's every year. It's like rinse, wash, and repeat. And I feel like they need to tweak their philosophy a little bit on how they treat their players that embody their culture. I mean, if you were to give a template, I think of like, hey, what does a 49er look like? It's Brandon Aiyuk. And I feel like if they would have, rewarded him by signing him earlier in this process, I think they could have paid less money given the contracts that some of these other wide receivers have gotten. And it just sends ripple effects through the organization for all their rookies, all the younger guys. Hey, look, you do it the right way, this is what happens.
Yeah, what's interesting, Ryan, is I really think around the league, the reputation you want them to have, they do. Like, and even if I give you your Nick Bosa take, would you be able to give another example of when you feel like their negotiations had a negative effect on the season?
I mean, probably not. I guess you need, you're right. I think you need more data to say, I mean, if this Aiyuk thing drags on and then it has a negative effect on the season, then I guess now you have 2 data points to say, okay, it's becoming a thing. But I don't know. I work in a corporate world and I feel like the hardest thing to do is establish a culture.
Yep.
And they've done the hardest thing. And so to me, I don't necessarily know if this would change that or not, but I think it would send a message to some of these rookies like, hey, this is what a 49er looks like, and this is what you'll get paid if you play this way.